The lights inside Saint Petersburg's arena glowed white against the canvas, as Khikmatillo Ulmasov stepped through the ropes. Only 18 years old, and already carrying the shine of a junior world silver medalist. He moved with the confidence of a fighter who had rarely tasted resistance. Black trunks trimmed in gold, sharp shoulders, calm eyes. Across from him stood Alexandr Zyryanov, 22, broader, thicker through the chest, expression locked somewhere between patience and calculation. This wasn't just another bout at IBA Pro 10, this was a proving ground. Ulmasov represented the promise of Uzbekistan's next star. Zyryanov represented the hardened backbone of Russian pressure boxing. The introductions ended, gloves touched, the bell rang, and immediately Ulmasov announced himself with speed. A jab stabbed to the body, an overhand right whipping clean across Zyryanov's chin. The crowd gasped. Ulmasov's footwork glided along the perimeter, sharp and alert, firing combinations before resetting. It was fast. It was precise. For a moment, it looked like a showcase for the prodigy. But Zyryanov's eyes never blinked. He wasn't retreating recklessly. He wasn't flustered. He was watching, absorbing, measuring rhythm. Every step Ulmasov took, Zyryanov mirrored half a beat later. Experience rarely screams in the first exchange. It waits. And beneath the early flash of Uzbek speed, something subtle was forming. Zyryanov was gathering information, inching closer, letting the younger man believe the tempo belonged to him. The fight had begun at Ulmasov's pace, but already, invisibly, it was drifting towards something heavier. The second round didn't explode the way the first had. Instead, it thickened. Zyryanov began stepping inside the pocket with deliberate pressure, chest angled forward, elbows tight, shoulders bumping. The space that Ulmasov thrived in started shrinking. What had been smooth pivots now required physical resistance. Zyryanov's jab grew firmer, snapping Ulmasov's head instead of merely touching it. A double uppercut cut through the middle. The sound changed. Less pop, more thud. Ulmasov still fired back with sharp counters, but the exchanges were no longer one and done. Zyryanov stayed there, leaning, grinding, making the teenager carry his weight. Same division, same number on the scale, but entirely different density. Halfway through the round, Ulmasov clinched for the first time. It wasn't panic, it was instinct. Zyryanov responded by working the body with short hooks, the kind that don't look devastating in isolation, but accumulate interest over time. The rhythm that Ulmasov commanded in the first round began to fracture. His resets grew shorter, his breathing a touch heavier. Zyryanov's confidence swelled quietly with every exchange. He switched briefly to southpaw, spearing a right jab through the guard, then returned orthodox and dug another hook downstairs. It wasn't flashy. It was methodical. The crowd sensed the momentum bending. By the end of the round, Ulmasov's speed remained, but his authority had faded. Zyryanov walked back to his corner upright, eyes clear, while Ulmasov exhaled deeper than before. The tempo had slowed, and that favored the older man. The fight was no longer about who was faster. It was about who could endure. Round 3 opened with urgency from Zyryanov. He no longer probed, he imposed. A sharp uppercut snapped Ulmasov's head backward and dislodged his mouthpiece, forcing a brief pause that felt longer than it was. The moment told a story words couldn't. Zyryanov's punches were now carrying authority that forced reactions. When action resumed, he closed distance immediately, ripping hooks to the ribs and lifting shots through the center. Ulmasov's replies still came in bursts, quick combinations fired out of reflex and pride, but the physical separation between them had grown obvious. Zyryanov leaned in, pushing with his forearm, framing with his shoulder, subtly controlling position before unleashing compact power. Each exchange pushed Ulmasov closer to the ropes. Each rope sequence drained another layer of energy. The Uzbek Prodigy's legs, once light and springy, began to anchor. A right hand from Zyryanov thudded against the guard and forced Ulmasov backward again. The Russian sensed the tide fully turn. He increased output without rushing, maintaining balance, picking shots with the patience of a man who knew time was on his side. Ulmasov's courage never flickered. He swung back, even landed clean counters, but every successful shot was immediately answered with heavier artillery. The audience could feel it now. Momentum was no longer shifting. Zyryanov was dictating the geography of the ring, deciding where exchanges happened and how long they lasted. By the final seconds of the round, Ulmasov was surviving exchanges rather than shaping them. The bell came as relief, and Zyryanov walked to his corner, looking like a fighter who understood the end was approaching. The fourth round marked new territory for Ulmasov in this kind of intensity. Zyryanov surged forward, as though aware that prolonged attrition only widened the gap between them. A stiff jab pinned Ulmasov to the ropes. A left hook dug into the body, then came the uppercut, clean, precise, snapping the head once more. Ulmasov tried to pivot out, but Zyryanov cut the angle, keeping him trapped within striking range. The difference in maturity showed in subtle layers. Zyryanov never smothered his own work, never squared up recklessly. He punched in disciplined combinations, reset, then re-engaged. Ulmasov clinched again, seeking seconds to recalibrate, but Zyryanov tore free and resumed the assault. Hooks downstairs, straight rights upstairs. The referee's gaze sharpened. Ulmasov fought back with bravery, throwing counters even as the momentum leaned heavily against him. Yet the exchanges no longer held balance. Zyryanov's shots were landing with increasing frequency, snapping sweat into the lights. The crowd rose as a unified sound wave, sensing inevitability. When Zyryanov unleashed another sequence against the ropes, body, head, uppercut, the referee intervened. It was a protective stoppage, timed not at collapse, but at accumulation. Ulmasov had heart, he had talent, but at this moment, the physical tide was overwhelming. The bout ended not in dramatic knockdown, but in sustained dominance. Zyryanov stepped back, breathing controlled, knowing he had methodically dismantled the challenge. As the announcement echoed through the arena in Saint Petersburg, Zyryanov absorbed the hometown roar with restrained pride. It had not been a reckless finish. It had been an education delivered through pressure. Ulmasov stood composed despite defeat, eyes reflecting both frustration and revelation. Loss at 18 can fracture confidence, or forge it. This contest revealed layers neither fighter fully knew before. Zyryanov confirmed that his strength, patience, and inside craft translate powerfully onto the IBA Pro stage. Ulmasov discovered the difference between junior dominance and seasoned resistance. On paper, his traditional professional record remains intact, but the lesson etched into this night holds greater weight than statistics. The bout illustrated a truth embedded deep within boxing culture. Speed can ignite excitement, but sustained pressure tests foundation. Zyryanov didn't win by surprise. He won by structure, by trusting that physical maturity combined with ring IQ bends momentum over time. For Ulmasov, this chapter becomes pivotal. Defeats early in a career often recalibrate ambition into precision. The aura of invincibility may dim, yet hunger intensifies. In years to come, analysts may look back at this evening as the moment both men revealed who they truly were under strain. One asserted himself as a rising pressure force in his division. The other confronted the reality that greatness demands adaptation beyond talent. Under the lights of Saint Petersburg, youth met maturity, and maturity prevailed.